to camera. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Hernandez, and today I'll be presenting to you a case that is filled with grief and tragedy. That case is the abduction and murder of Adam Walsh. This speech is the purpose of the speech is to give parents and guardians awareness in child abduction cases and to always be alert of your surroundings, people around your surroundings. Even having happened over 4 decades ago, this case holds a huge impact in the nation and the community as one of the most gruesome murders in Florida's history. Fueled by anger of their son's death, which caused them to spark several advocacy programs and awareness movements, Mr. and Mrs. Walsh were part of America's Most Wanted, the popular TV show on the Fox network, which was hosted by John Walsh, the father of Adam. And it got viewer attention by profiling criminals on screen with full detail of their criminal history and dramatizations of their criminal acts. It urged citizens to call in with tips and to be on the lookout for these certain individuals. Thanks to the show, a bunch of fugitives were brought to justice, over 1,000 of them, which were brought to justice according to the April survey of 2021. So very recently. They're still also on air, so they're continuing to find fugitives further out as we speak. Despite all the success, however, the show's purpose was to find the murderer of his son Adam, which he didn't find for a few years until 2008 when the serial killer Otis Toole, confessed while he was in prison in Florida State Prison. So how the abduction had happened is that 6-year-old Adam Walsh and his mother, Reve Walsh, went to a trip to the Sears store for miscellaneous items. Miss Reve had left Adam Walsh at the video game section as video games were brand new in the 80s, and Adam was gawking over the teenage kids that were playing there. So she agreed to leave him there so as long as she could see the top of his head 3 aisles away at the lounge section she was going to be in. She was there for about 3.5 minutes. When she returned, to her surprise, her son was not there, and neither were the kids. She frantically went to go to ask the store clerks for help, at which she received little to none, and she frantically went outside of Sears to the nearest payphone and phoned the police immediately. It took about 45 minutes for the first officers to respond, even though the police station was right across the street, as they didn't take child abduction cases or child welfare too seriously back in the 80s around that area, apparently, in Hollywood, Florida. With the manhunt, it was about a little over 12 dozen police officers who went on a 4-day manhunt, at which, quote unquote, they hit a wall, according to the book based on Adam Walsh's case and abduction, bringing Adam home by Les Stanfield. And after 4 days, they weren't receiving much law enforcement help, so John and Reve Walsh turned to the media, at which ABC's Good Morning America gave them a spot to provide their case open to the public and see if they could get any help that way, at which John and Reve Walsh offered a $50,000 reward, and after some days of desperation, upped it up to $100,000. Unfortunately, after 16 days of Adam's reported disappearance, his 2 fishermen reported seeing a severed head floating in the canal near the Florida Turnpike, which ended up being identified as Adam Walsh's severed head. His body was never recovered or found to this day. Because of this, Hunter had stated in one of his articles during the disappearance of Adam, sometime during that time that Miss Walsh had laid eyes off of him, he met an ill-fated visit and encountered an evil conjurer from the depths of hell in the form of a freak named Otis Toole. So this is where John Walsh and Reve Walsh had turned into advocates, and 4 days after their son's funeral, they founded a outreach center for missing children and helped parents find their missing children and things like that, as well as enacted a law that obligated the Federal Bureau of Investigation to enter missing children's information into their computer database to better find missing children and make the causes a little bit more probable in finding them. So from there, after John Walsh was had received the news that Otis Toole had committed the abduction and killing of his son. Um, Otis was already in Florida State Prison and had agreed that he participated in the act with another known serial killer known by the name as Henry Lee Lucas, who was also a mass serial killer that was a romantic lover with Otis Toole at the time of Adam's disappearance. There were plenty of witnesses that placed Toole and his 1971 white Cadillac at the Sears store when Adam had disappeared. And so Toole had admitted that he and Henry Lucas had dismembered and severed Adam's head from his body after he had died from asphyxiation because they had placed a bag over his head. They had done out with the head by throwing it out the window while they were driving, that's when the fisherman had found it. Otis Toole had died at the age of 49 in the Florida State Prison of cirrhosis, and nobody had claimed his body, so he was buried there as well in the Florida State Prison. I believe this case really brings awareness to a lot of people, because I know parents and guardians can get very comfortable with their children, even if they are in familiar places or locations. It's always good to be alert, no matter who you're with, no matter how comfortable you are with them. You can never trust anybody nowadays, because it can be the nicest person that can harm your child. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.